Do We Live in a Simulation by James Cusin? This is a challenging piece of writing. It's meant to be challenging, but I'm hoping that you will engage with it nonetheless. This is the second primary reading, which you're going to have an opportunity to decide whether or not you want to go with this one for essay number one. You don't have to. You can go with Plato if you so wish, but you do have to engage with this for this week. So, do we live in a simulation? It's not a philosophy class. I'm not going to be pushing you, testing you on the finer points of Baudrillard or Heidegger or anybody like that. Um, and I know there are some people in the class that would absolutely love to get into a Hegelian breakdown of this, but that's not where we're going with it. We're looking at this piece holistically and kind of evaluating it from the standpoint of where Cusin is taking us with his ideas on simulation. We can see some direct tie-ins to Plato in the allegory of the cave, where you're looking at the wall, chained, looking at the shadows on the wall, and coming up with your own reality. Versus Houston's idea that we live in a simulation and everything is kind of like living within the shadows on that wall. There's different ranges on this whole simulation idea. The idea that goes all the way to the matrix, where we're actually living in some completely artificial electronic type of simulation where nothing is real, everything's digitally coded, and we're just experiencing it. We're thinking that we're experiencing it. And this shifts all the way back down to the idea of technological advancements within our own lives, somehow making life so artificial that our lives become like a simulation. And I think Houston makes room for that. You'll see when he starts talking about the hypermarket, for example. If you go back 200 years ago, where you would go to a fair or a market in order to buy food or buy goods, you might meet a candle maker and he might tell you about the wax that he has or how the candles were constructed, or you get to know him personally. And now we just go to the supermarket, and if you want a candle, which I don't know why you would want a candle, but if you want a candle, you just go to aisle 11 and you just grab a candle. You don't get a story, you don't hear the history of the wax, you don't really care, you just throw it in the cart and move along. So the way the market is, the way the hypermarket, as far as Cusin gets into, has completely changed or revolutionized our idea in creating this kind of simulation of a market itself. And so it does become a simulation in the sense that the second you start to regulate your environment, you turn on an air conditioner, you enclose your house, you have artificial lighting. All of these things lend us to this artificial simulated life that's completely unnatural to us in our human condition. And this manifests most directly if you think about going outside at night in the dark and you think, oh, it's kind of frightening. I need a flashlight. Or if you go back like 200 years ago, ancestors went outside and did their business. Well, maybe they did their business. Well, anyway, they would go outside and they would not be afraid of the dark. They could go out there and do whatever they needed to do and come back in, and it was not a frightening ordeal for them. So as you're kind of examining this, looking at the different aspects that our lives might be a simulation, make room for the idea that it could be as anything from as subtle to our artificiality and technological advances to something all the way to us living in a digital creation or even just having things fed to us through digital means. And I think you can see that whether it's the television or the telephone as we engage in social media and completely change the manner in which we take in information. So, again, this is simply a primary source. It's something for us to engage in. There will be an assignment on this, and you do have the option of utilizing this for essay number one. So, just read it accordingly. If you have questions, stop by the office hour. Thanks.